everybody. Welcome to the Fun with Friends podcast. I'm your host, 𝗴𝘂𝗲𝗀𝗁, and I hope you're all doing well today and staying safe. Maybe you have tried something new today, new this week. If not, you still got a little bit of time left in the week, so y'all should get out there and try something new. I am super pumped for my guest today. I am being joined by Cheryl Woodhouse, founder and lead designer at Tactile Design Company and creator of the Solo School. Round of applause. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. And I cannot wait to learn more about your business and how you've set up your business so that you can have that consistency and income without being consistent. And the way you kind of described that when we were first talking was, when it comes to consistency, without being consistent, that means you have time to you can travel and work and, do all the neurodivergent things that make you happy. So I cannot wait to discuss more. And thank you again for being on the pod.
Oh, I'm super jazzed. I knew from the moment we met that we were destined to do something together, because I know the audience can't see this, but we both have blue hair, and that's always a sign.
It's meant to be. It's the blue hair. 100%. And we also have like a couple of travel coaching friends in common, I think. So that's how we connected. And as soon as Cheryl reached out, I was like, hell yeah, get on this pod, let's go. So I'm so very excited to have you on. And you really have an amazing story where you kind of struggled and worked hard for 10 years and ended up going from homelessness to building this 6-figure business that you have. And I find that truly inspirational, especially because you've done this while not letting boundaries, I guess, kind of limit you, or not limiting yourself to being in one location. You've still been able to travel and work wherever you want. And I think folks kind of forget that that's an option, that you can work from wherever you want, especially now with the kind of telework, I don't know, what trend, teleworking becoming a trend, I guess, I don't know. But I also love that you help others do the same. Like, you kind of take what you've learned and what you've gone through, and you help other freelancers or small business owners kind of figure out how they can have that consistency, but also be able to live that inconsistent life that they want. So I'll shut up now. And I'm going to toss it over to you, Cheryl, to share a little bit more about your journey and kind of how you got to where you are today.
Yes. Okay. Story time. Because I don't think I have fully told the story anywhere. So you get it here first. I'm going to back way the F up to like when I was a kid. Okay. So we're talking kindergarten and younger. I grew up really, really super poor. I mean, like, my mom cried and wouldn't let me eat the ramen from the food bank because she was too proud poor. We bounced around in rental housing. My back to school clothes, when we got them, were either from the secondhand store, or Grandma used her grocery store rewards points and cashed them in for gift certificates. Like, that's how we had clothes. And the majority of that was because both of my parents were disabled. My dad had a severe injury in his arm and dealt with pretty severe bipolar. Now he's realizing also probably pretty severe ADHD most of his life. And my mom is actually agoraphobic. So if you don't know what that means, it essentially means you're terrified to leave your house because you're worried that when you leave your house, you're going to have a panic attack and you're not going to have a safe place to go. So you can only leave if you follow the same routes and same roads. You know where bathrooms are, you know where the escapes and the safe places are. And there's very few of those. They're far between. And it's hard to raise kids like that and have jobs like that. And so we grew up without a lot of means. And I'm not going to say that my childhood was perfect or non-traumatic, but the one thing that my parents did give me was a different life than what most of my friends lived. And Most of my friends, both parents woke up in the morning, dropped them off at school, went to work all day. They went to after school groups or programs or daycare or a friend's house. And then their parents picked them up on the way home. They ate dinner, did homework, went to bed, repeat. That was what everyone else lived. Mm-hmm. And that's the track that most of them have now ended up on, right? I got up in the morning and walked to school because my mom was up early enough. She was an early bird. I'm super not. I don't know where that went. But, she got us up and we walked to school, and then we came home and there were snacks there waiting for us, and mom and dad were both there. Mm. And we had a roof over our head, even if it was a different one every couple of years. And we had food in the pantry, even if it wasn't always bought and paid for with, an overabundance of cash. And my dad, at various times throughout my childhood, tried to start his own business. And those were usually the good times when we had a business up and running and bringing in money. Those were the times where we actually got new clothes and we got new books and we got video game systems and televisions and like all the stuff that you're not really supposed to spend money on when you're trying to climb out of poverty, but you've been so deprived for so long that you do. Right. Oh, yeah. And so that was my upbringing, watching two disabled people struggle to raise three kids in a system that wasn't built for anyone who can't work 40 hours a week to be able to eke out more than a meager existence. And so when I got older, my first instinct was rebellion. Like, screw this, I'm going to get a job. Like, I dropped out of high school to go and get a job so that I could pay some of their bills with my job, because it was time someone in the family had a job, thinking I knew everything, like most teenagers do, right? I know everything. I know better. All you really needed this whole time was a job. And so I go out and I get a job, and it is the most soul-sucking, horrific time of my life. And I ended up in like customer support and sales for my early jobs. So they're like the most soul-sucking of the soul-sucking. I'm like trying to help people fix their computers and then upselling them on warranties and selling cell phones in the mall. And it's just every month, my maximum from last month is my minimum for the next month. And I'm not even allowed to sit down around customers. And it was just, I was making money, but at what cost? Yeah. And the cost started to become apparent to me until one day I was like 19-ish. I'd been freelancing a bit on the side for extra money, because here's me like super finance focused now as a result. And I got in a horrific car accident right before Christmas, actually, after Christmas shopping with my sister. Totaled my car, separated my pelvis, needed months and months of physiotherapy. So not being allowed to sit down around customers became a huge barrier all of a sudden. And so I came home and my short-term and long-term disability claims were denied, because that's how those insurance things work. They just will find any reason. And so I had to figure out how I was going to make money when all I knew how to do was in-person sales and call center customer service, other than this little copywriting thing I'd been doing on the side after I picked up a book from AWAI and had read some stuff from Bob Bly and the Robert Collier letter book. So anyone who knows copywriting, you're already like, okay, yeah, all the old school people. Yeah. Those of you who don't, they're like the godfathers of copywriting. They're old school genius level, like celebrity type folks from way back. So I started picking this up. And I thought, I'm going to drop a special offer on this forum that I'm on for digital marketer people. And I'm going to see if I can make some money from home in between my physio appointments so that I can do both and pay my bills. Yeah. And so I put out this offer to write email copy for literally $20, like $20 per email, which don't do that. It's too cheap. But back then I was like, I need a test. I need to prove it. And I did it. And I sold like 5 of them and I made $100. Nice. And in that moment, even though it took me almost a week to fulfill all of it, because I was still learning everything, I knew nothing about freelancing and client management and time management and any of that stuff. It taught me that I could do this. Mm-hmm. And so from that point until I was like 23, so I'm going to say about 4 years. I'd already been freelancing for 4 or 5 years on the side. Now it was like my main thing. I was like, well, I'm never going back to a job again. That would be stupid. Let's get this going. I was making $3,500 from a sales letter over here, $200 for blog posts over there. Like I was making decent money doing it as a late teens, early 20s person. got married. We were going to have kids. So kind of put that on the side burner and just did it part-time while being a stay-at-home mom until the recession took my husband's job away completely. And he worked in manufacturing, like entry-level manufacturing, where the only reason he was making more than minimum wage was because he'd been there for 8 years. So not an easy job to replace in the middle of a recession.
Yeah.
And my freelance income became all of our income all at once. So, and that was with a 4-week-old newborn at home.
Jesus.
So in kicked all of this stuff I had been learning about managing my business and running things flexibly. And I did the best I could. But all I was getting was like one-off projects, right? I would go onto Upwork. I would use my network. I would do outreach. I'd do all the right things, all the things you're taught to do. I kept trying to blog. I kept trying to, build my website and my portfolio and do lead magnets and grow my list and all the marketing-y things you're told you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And we ended up losing our house because doing that and getting one-off projects turned out not to be the ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so we spent 9 months while I was pregnant with our second child, living with my in-laws, until I finally realized that what I needed more than big ticket one-off projects was a steady income. I needed something that could pay my bills every month because my bills came every month. And so I had a client that I had been working with over a few different projects. They'd come back to me a few times and I was like, hey, do you guys just want to like bring me on to complete these tasks over the next 12 months or so? And we'll just break down the payments monthly so it's easier on your cash flow. And then I know what I've got coming for work month, 1 month to the next.
Yeah.
And they said yes. And it was a $60,000 contract. And we went out and got a house the next month.
Jeez.
Because we could.
That's freaking amazing.
It is. And then
that's what I want. That's what I'm going for.
Yes. And it was such a huge revelation. I can remember, like, it was November and we were at a family function and I stepped outside to take her call and it was pouring down rain. And I was like standing on the sidewalk with my phone. Audience can't see me, but I'm like holding up a little banana phone next to my head. I'm like on my phone and I say the number. I'm like, I would like $5,000 a month to do this work for you. And then I just stood there in silence, waiting to hear that I am the most spoiled, entitled. What am I even thinking? I'm not worth that, blah, 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 blah. And she was like, oh, okay. And I was like, okay, we'll start on Monday. I'll send over the contract when I get home. And we hung up and I just cried, man. I just cried. Because it was so much suffering that was suddenly over with. And I knew I was going to have $5,000 per month for the next 12 months that I could reasonably count on. Like if I burn it down and screw it all up, yeah, it's going away. But if I don't, and this wasn't a full-time job kind of contract. This was 10, 15, maybe 20 hours a week for what they were asking because it was a fairly big project. They were a startup. It was all of their marketing and managing their PR people and helping build their sales team and everything else. But it was my first one, so I didn't care. I needed it. And I built from there. I added on PR clients. I added on sales coaching clients. I just added. And then within a few years, I crossed over the 6-figure mark and pretty much didn't look back until I decided to be crazy, burn it all down and teach other people how I did it.
Build a new part of your empire. Oh my gosh. That's first off, thank you for sharing your story. Because like I said, it's very inspiring and it's funny, but hopefully I'll be able to replicate your business success one day. So.
Just got to focus in the right places. I mean, that's really what changed a lot of it for me was I stopped trying to be consistent. I stopped trying to market myself the way you're supposed to. I stopped trying to fill my funnel or fill my pipeline and do all that other stuff because I'm neurodivergent. I was diagnosed bipolar at 16. I'm 99% sure that was incorrect. And it's actually ADHD because even when I'm happy, my house is still a disaster.
Yeah. So. It's not like they misdiagnose women with
no,
ADHD.
But yeah, like I had to accept that I could not be consistent. I had to accept that I had to build a consistent income that my clients were responsible for the consistency. I was just responsible for making sure that the work that I promised them was done before the meetings that I set with them to keep myself motivated. And that's how it had to be. And that my sales process couldn't be consistent, because as much as for someone who grew up with an agoraphobic mother and therefore inherited a crap ton of social anxiety can attest to, like, peopling is hard. Yes. And so leads on autopilot sounds like the dream. It takes so much to get to that point. Like, that's the journey I'm on now, is building an audience-based business, which is a totally different animal. And I've been doing it for 15 months. And I'm just now getting to the point where maybe I can sort of support our family on some of it, you know? Yeah. And people are finally starting to pay attention, and people are finally starting to listen. And I'm finally learning how to talk about myself in a way that it helps people listen. So, you know, I had to realize that consistently posting on social, or back then in forums, consistently writing blogs, consistently promoting my email list, that's shit I can't do, basically. Yeah. So I had to get my clients to pay me consistently and just be wildly inconsistent and flail, and have the flexibility that I wanted to stay home with my babies and unschool them, because that's fun.
Yes. Well, that's what, as you're talking, I'm like, oh, these are all the things that I currently struggle with. Because I'm like, oh, I got a blog that I don't use. I've got a newsletter that I am very inconsistent about sending out, and like the social media stuff. And just trying to show up all the time to market yourself. And like, I've got a website that I pay for, and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, do I actually need it? But then you have like everyone telling you, yes, you do. Like, you need to have a website. You need to have this. You need to have a mailing list. You've got to, if you're going to get business, these are the things that you need. And so it's like, there's that like internal conflict of like, kind of like, do I burn it all down and just focus on like, trying to get long lasting, consistent clients? Or do I keep making myself feel bad about not being able to do the consistent things and still not get clients?
Well, and I just need to say, like, batching content is a Band-Aid. Batching content is always a solution thrown out for this. Like, oh, if you can't be consistent, just batch it out. First of all, I can't consistently batch it out. So there's that. Second of all, when I sit down to batch it, I can't get it done.
Yep. Oh my God. Yeah.
And then third, like, when I batch it out and I put it out there, by the time that it actually starts going out, I have more ideas and different things that I want to share. And so it's not resonating with me anymore. And then it stops working. Yeah. So, that's typically, I find that people going, oh, just batch out your content, are mostly neurotypical people who they think we struggle with time or like
time management.
It's the you should meal prep version of social media, right?
Like, oh God, don't even get me on meal prepping.
Right? It just moves the time. It doesn't make it take less time. Why don't people understand this?
Anyway. Yes, I hate it. Oh my Lord. And something else you said, I think it was on your website or something, but it's the way you describe what you do, which is you help neurodivergent service business owners get more consistency with long-term high-ticket offers. Yeah. And I think that perfectly sums up like what a lot of us are looking for. Because I know, like, for myself, I do like freelance graphic design, copyright, like all the stuff. And I have like 6 clients, but they're small clients, and I'm still not making enough to survive on. So I'm like, okay, like, I love my clients, but maybe instead of having 6 small clients that take up all my time and don't give me enough money, I got to start looking at clients that can pay more and have less clients. So I'm doing, I don't know. It's funny because it's taken me a good, I'd say, year and a half to kind of like start wrapping my brain around what I just said.
So the funny thing is, after I figured out this whole thing about selling people into long-term high ticket offers, kind of being a way to get the consistency that the funnels and all the other shit never gave me. I landed a few business coaching clients. I landed a few business coaching gigs where I was like a sub coach under other people. Yeah, you think so, but I was working with like 25 clients at a time and had multiple standing meetings. So no, not nice. Lasted a year. Yeeted myself out of that pretty quick. But yeah, like it gave me a lot of experience, and I've done lots and lots of market research interviews because that's a key part of my process. It's always been part of building my business. Like I do market research to understand what people want from me. And also that market research acts as a way to grow my network. So it helps me find clients. It helps me find referral sources. It helps other people know who I am and what I do. And because I'm neurodivergent, the niche I want to work in changes like every 6 months. So I get to learn all the things about how to apply what I do to that new niche by doing the market research, build a network, get the referral sources, get the new clients, pick up a couple of long-term high ticket ones, and then move on to the next niche when I want to. But in doing that, in interviewing all of these successful entrepreneurs, in doing the business coaching for myself and as like a subcontracted coach, all these things, I have had the lucky opportunity to interview well over like 200 entrepreneurs, many of whom I would say probably close to 150 were successful as one-to-one service providers. Okay. And there was a really common theme that emerged, and there could be bias to this. Like I only went through half of the course, but I did take statistics in the social sciences in university. And I know that bias can impact the results. And so, you know, the celebrity type, full funnel, lots of marketing people may be less prone to get on the phone with a pleb like me. But the ones that I talked to all seem to have the same sort of things in common. And these were people making like $110,000, $120,000 a year, all the way up to like $750,000 a year.
Nice.
None of them had sales funnels. None of them had marketing. They were coming to me like, so how do I start an email list? I'm making $360,000 this year. I think it's finally time. I'm supposed to, I should, this is something I need to do. And I'm like, well, how did you get where you are? Like, how are you making $30,000 a month without an email list? And like, oh, I just kind of built a network, did a bunch of outreach early on, learned what people wanted from me. And then it's mostly come through referrals and outreach in my network. Like, okay, so why are you changing?
Yeah. So do you actually need this thing?
And they did, because they were like me and they wanted to move on to a bigger impact stage. You know, my oldest is turning 12 this year. My youngest is turning 7. My babies are growing up. And I've been sitting with some discontent for a couple of years where it's like, is this all I'm going to do with all of this privilege that I've got now? Or can I make a real dent in income equality for kids like me growing up? And so, you know, some people do choose to make that shift. But the great thing about building a freelance business like that, where you get the long-term high ticket clients, is that it gives you the flexibility to do that and still keep your income, which a job, I mean, I don't know about you, but the idea of working 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and then coming home and working 4 hours on building an audience just makes me want to gouge my eyes out with a fidget spinner. So
I concur. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, they all built on referrals and networking and outreach, and nobody did it with sales funnels. Nobody had a pipeline full of leads. Everybody was like, oh yeah, I know some guy that I worked with early on went to Stanford. And as soon as I got good results for him, he told his entire class about me. And now I'm executive coaching half of Silicon Valley. I was like, and you really don't have a website? And she was like, yeah.
I mean, I fully feel like the world is built on networking anyways. Like when you do, when you do look at people who are successful, whether it's as entrepreneurs or even like in a corporate life, a lot of it has to do with who you know and what they think about you. So that's a good thing to keep in mind, because I feel like, again, I can just speak to my personal experience, but I feel like we might be losing a little bit of that, like that networking aspect, especially because everything is it's connected but also distant, if that makes sense, with like social media and just everything being more kind of like online.
I have some thoughts on this, because on the one hand, all the people telling you to like build a funnel and fill your pipeline and market yourself that are to the level of success where they're somewhat visible. And like, I'm not going to drop names, but you all know them. You all recognize them. They've all got New York Times best-selling books, maybe own software. They run big retreats or events every year, all this other kind of stuff, right? They all know each other and promote their stuff for each other. And that's why their pipeline and their funnel is full, because their network sends them a ton of traffic. And that's always how it's been. It used to be an old boys club. There are more women and non-binary folks in it now, but pretty much like you go back to russellbrunson.com secrets era and Frank Kern's shady starts on the dark corners of the internet. And yeah, they were all promoting each other's stuff to their email lists and giving each other credibility and borrowing each other's social proof. And that's how they started to make it in the first place. And then they tell you to just start blogging and that'll somehow produce the same results. And it doesn't. And we wonder why. So there is that, where the people who are telling us that we don't need to network anymore are the people who are using their network to build their net worth. But there's also the fact that, like, for all of human history, this was how commerce and trade was done. It was like a family at home. The kids learned from their parents, usually ended up learning their trade, like you with farming, right?
Yep.
And, you know, that family would trade with other families nearby in their network. Think of the town cobbler, you know, his son's in the shop learning how to repair shoes at 8 years old, and everyone in town knew who he was, and they all went to him to get their shoes repaired. And that's just how trade and commerce happened all the way up until the Industrial Revolution, when all of the rich fat cats were like, hey, if you come work in my factory instead, I'll pay you even less and give you shitty hours. And somehow we bought into that. And then the whole world changed to shift around that model when it was never really how we were meant to work in the first place. And since the thing that shall not be named that had completely changed the course of the world in around March of 2020 has happened, suddenly it's become socially acceptable to be the town cobbler again. And like everybody's making stuff at home and selling it on Etsy and Marketplace, or providing services from home, or like running skip the dishes to pay their mortgage. And they don't want to go back. They don't want to go back to doing 40 hours a week in an office with a monkey suit and golden handcuffs. They enjoy the flexibility and the freedom and the autonomy of living the way that we did for all of human history before the oligarchs told us we shouldn't. And I think there's a real change coming and shifting back to that, but I don't think it's new. I think it's returning to where we belong.
Yeah, coming back. And I definitely agree with that. And I also just want to say the thought of going back to 9 to 5 gives me massive anxiety. I'm just like, no, please, God, no. Let's not do that.
Can you imagine?
Please.
I'm pretty sure there would be like a middle finger and I'm fired within the first hour of the first day. Like I would not last. I'm like, the way you're doing this is so inefficient and stupid. Get out of my way. Fired.
Oh my God. Yeah. I would do something very similar. So I wanted to, because we talked a lot about like, you know, long or big ticket, long-term clients and consistency. And we've touched on this a little bit about like how you can find those clients and how you attract those clients. And one way is through referrals and social proof and networking. But what are some other ways to do that? And how does that client attraction work into building consistency? Which I feel like we kind of already answered some of these, but if you could put it like succinctly, I guess.
Yeah. So I feel like for me, the biggest thing that has worked has been building a network in a niche. And I've done it over and over again in different niches, like I mentioned, but it all starts with doing market research, which I initiate through cold outreach. I just find the people that I want to interview. I'm like, hey, you're amazing. You're an expert. I want to pick your brain. Can we sit down for 20 minutes? And I'm just going to ask you a bunch of questions about how you became so successful. And then I do that 10, 15, 20 times in the new niche I want to get into. And I take those answers and I circle back to all of them and I say, okay, here's what I learned. Everyone in your industry who's having massive success is doing this. Most of you are facing this problem. The people who have overcome that problem have done this. And the people who still have that problem that I end up talking to are like, oh, well, that's valuable. Thanks for sharing. And then at the end, because I'm not a bait and switchy kind of person, like I don't jump into these calls, turning them into sales calls.
Yeah.
We do the research. I circle back, I share the results. And if they show interest in having that solution for them, I say, hey, I'm developing something to actually do this for people like you. Did you want to schedule another call and we can talk about it? And we make the call to actually go through the pitch and the proposal process separate from the research calls. And some of them say yes, and some of them say no. And I said, in that case, I'm like, well, do you know anyone that could benefit from something like this? Is there someone else that I should talk to? And usually that person turns into a referral source. It's like if I interview 20 people, I'll get 15 clients or referral sources. And there's some general mix in there. A lot of the time it ends up being maybe like 10 referral sources and 5 clients.
Nice.
But, it ends up working so that the referral sources are always sending me people because they're aware of what I'm doing. And they may never send me one, but they're aware of what I'm doing. And they might tell people, and those people find me through other ways, or they hear my name again, dropped by someone else. Right. And one of the other important steps when attracting these clients is to test them because these are clients you've gotten through cold outreach. They haven't gone through all your funnels. They don't know your personality. They don't know if they can trust you. They don't know, you don't know if you like them, if you like working with them, if they're going to respect your boundaries, all of that other sort of fun stuff. So what I usually like to do with new clients is I'll do an initial offer that's about 3 to 4 weeks long. And I will essentially sell them really deep discovery and then building a plan for their work. So, if I feel like I'm doing content writing for this 6-month stint with my brain, I'll create them a content plan for the next 6 months or the next 12 months. When I was doing social media, it was a social media strategy and plan for the next 6 to 12 months. And I would spend 3 to 4 weeks doing that. I would include all my clients' setup work in that. And then at the end, if I didn't like working with them or they repeatedly violated my boundaries, I was like, here's your plan. Bye. But if I did like working with them, I was like, here's your plan. And usually they were like, wow, this is amazing, but how am I going to do this? And I was like, well, I'm right here. You already know me. You like me. You trust me. And I'm capable of doing it. So what if we scheduled another call to talk about the possibility of me taking this on for you? And a lot of people say yes, because they don't want to do it themselves and they don't want to shop around when they've already got you and they trust you. Right.
Yeah.
So those are the ones that turn into the long-term high ticket clients. It's a multi-stage process. It is not a fast sales cycle, but neither is building a sales funnel. So you have to choose your hard, like they say.
Choose the oh, never mind. I'm gonna edit that out because I lost my train of thought. Anyways. So that I find fascinating about what you do is you also do like a lot of traveling and are kind of like a bit of a digital nomad, I would say, if we want to use that term. But
I love that term.
Okay. Some people do, some people don't. So it's it's hit or miss. And having these big ticket clients and having that consistency has kind of allowed you to really, it has lent itself well, I guess, to that digital nomad life. And I guess I'm curious as to like, what have some of the challenges been in making that, well, I don't know, because now I'm like, well, now that I've heard your story, like it sounds like you've kind of been on this road from like a young age. So I guess I'm wondering, were there what some of the challenges were when you decided to do the nomadic lifestyle and also continue to build your business?
Yes. So
super long.
I have that's okay. I have always been location independent. That was always my thing. Like, I am not going to travel for work. I did end up doing it once, but like, it was worth it. I'm not going to travel for work. I'm not going to go into an office every day. I want to work from home. I want to, at the time I decided this, I was like, I just don't want to get up every day. Eventually it turned into, I want to be home with my kids, so I was location independent this whole time. And I gotta say, it never really presented many challenges. Like the way I did outreach and the way I connected with clients, by the time they got to the point where they were working with me, it was completely expected that I wasn't going to show up in their office. I'm Canadian. Most of my clients have been in the US, UK, and Australia. So not like I'm just going to fly down to Perth and come visit. That was the worst Australian accent ever. But yeah, you get the idea. Like I set things up from the beginning with clients to expect that I wasn't going to show up, even from the very first contact with them. So that was never really a challenge. I guess it was, I want to say like 2016, the housing market here was starting to explode and we had discovered RVing. We had always been active outdoorsy people, campers a lot before kids. And then when the kids were younger, we got out of it for some reason. I guess it's just busy and well, I mean, we ended up super poor for a while there too, which tends to stop. But yeah, we discovered RVing and we had like the seasonal site up at the lake that I grew up going to because that was my only vacation. My grandparents would take us here to this very campground during summer break. And it was the only time we ever actually got to go like on vacation. It was so cool. And we had the seasonal site here and we were spending our whole freaking summer there, but we lived on 10.5 acres. And so by the time we got home after a full summer of not being there, there was so much work to do on the property. It was just, and we were just like, it's not worth it to have this much land that we're not even using that we therefore then also have to maintain when we could be doing other things. But then we looked at the property market and we were renters, right? So we're looking at the rental market and it's like, I'm not going to spend $3,000 a month on what we're currently spending $1,800 for. Why don't we go stay in our seasonal site for the summer in our little 24-foot trailer? And it was an older one at that time. And we'll just hop back in the fall and everything will look good. And so we started that and we moved. It was actually March, I think, of 2016, something like that. Yeah, March 2016. We moved into our old trailer. And it was the intention of doing it just for the summer. So, you know, everything goes into storage and saving all this money because we're not spending it on rent. We're all excited. And then we start looking at the property market and I turn to my husband and I go, why are we going to live here still?
Yeah.
Why are we going to live in this area still? Like, why can't we go somewhere else? There's literally, our kids aren't in school. I don't have to go to job every day. Like our parents are here, so I'd want to at least visit, but why are we just like living in one spot? And I stumbled on the whole idea of like full-time RVing and digital nomad life. And now there was a lot of the van lifey, like single white couple lives in $200,000 van down by the beach kind of thing. I'm like, well, that's obviously not me. Or the people hopping around the world on around the world plane tickets that didn't have 3 toddlers in tow, you know? So that kind of, that wasn't for me, but I did find this whole subset of families that were doing it in the US and they literally just bounced around and they stuck with the nice weather going north and south and they had all this amazing community. And so we decided we were going to do that and we didn't know how long it was going to last, but we did it. We made the leap and we bought a big 5th wheel. So now our family of 5 plus a dog lives in 425 square feet. It's 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths with a full size fridge. We've got washer dryer hookups. Like we are by no means living an unprivileged life in this space. It's just a little more minimalist, I would say. And yeah, like I would say the biggest obstacle has just been that it's a bit of a double-edged sword. And you have to, if you choose this life, you kind of have to understand what you want from it. Because there are people out there who tried to do things like this. One of my mentors actually is one of them. Like she tried to do the digital nomad thing. And she was like, I was just sitting by the pool answering emails all day. I wasn't in the pool. I wasn't, jumping around in the waves at the ocean. I was on my laptop under a palm tree. And like, it wasn't for me. When I do those things, I want to be completely off. I'm like, that's totally a valid choice.
Yeah.
For me, I would rather be under a palm tree on a laptop than in a crappy rental house in rainy Canada in November and January on my laptop. Because the laptop's happening no matter what. So pick where I want to do it. And so, yeah, we stick with that, but you really have to decide whether whether that part is for you. Like, are you going to feel like you're constantly missing out on life because you have to work from these beautiful destinations? Like, I've climbed down off of a glacier and checked my email, but I got to go climb a glacier in the middle of a work day and then just go check my email like nothing happened. So, it's what resonates for you. It's what works for you. Are you okay with checking your email after getting off of a glacier, or do you not want to have to check your email at all and just go to the glacier on vacation? I would rather get to spend a lot longer on the Icefields Parkway or in Banff and Jasper and do all that stuff like we did in 2020 than to have to cut it super short just so I wouldn't have to work. But you have to decide.
No, that's a good take on it, because it's definitely something I've been thinking about, because one of the main reasons I quit my corporate job was so I could be mobile and go places and work from wherever I wanted. And I found last year, so from 2019 to now, I guess, I'm very much a creature of habit. Like, I like my spaces a certain way. I like to know like where stuff is, and it has to do with like anxiety and knowing. And so I started really thinking about it this year, about like digital, just traveling, trying to RV kind of around a little bit. And I'm like, would I be able to do it? Or would the changing of location throw everything off? And then, I'd have to start back at zero. But so I don't know. I think I'm going to try it because I want to see if it's something I enjoy. So I'm like, I'm going to give it a go. It just depends on when. But
I mean, for me, it was pretty obvious that it was a yes. Like, it wasn't a should I, shouldn't I? We went on a trip. After we decided to do this, we decided to give it a try. We decided to go full time, and we had our whole trip down to San Diego for our first winter planned. And then we're like, okay, well, let's make sure we like traveling, because very poor kid, no travel up until that point. The farthest I'd been is like Edmonton, and that's not really traveling. So we took this trip down to Newport, Oregon, when our youngest was still nursing. So it was a couple's trip, but I had a toddler.
Yeah.
And we go down to Newport, Oregon. And I swear I had never felt more at home than sitting in the seat of that car and just seeing new things every day. Like, people talk about that feeling of home. And we watched this couple building a container home on this rural property in Texas on YouTube, and just kind of stalk them online and stuff like most people do. Right.
Yep.
And I watch them, and I watch how they feel about their house and how they feel about their property. And they're so anchored there in a positive way. Like, they love it. They feel like that is their place in the world. It feels like a warm, cozy blanket around them. You can just sense that in the way that they talk about and the way that they film their property. I've never had that, like, anywhere. I do not feel anchored in any specific place. I have never been somewhere without having the urge to leave it or find out what's next or move on or do better. And the only place that feeling doesn't happen is when I'm in the passenger seat of our truck, and we've got either this fifth wheel behind us, or we have our even smaller, I would say like 75 square foot truck camper that we sleep 5 of us in when we go on our more backwoods adventures. And I feel at home there. The constant change builds me up. It helps me thrive. It gives me energy. It feeds my soul. It's like the hardest case of wanderlust you're ever going to experience. And I have it. And I found that out by trying it out. All of the anxiety kind of fades away. We had some really bad flooding here back in November, and our town was actually cut off by land from the entire rest of the world due to mudslides and flooding across all of the major highways in and out. And so there was no gas, there was no groceries. And a lot of people were saying to me, like, what if you guys were somewhere else when this happened? I was like, wouldn't that be great? Because I could get milk.
I'd have access to things.
And it's a different perspective though, right? It's like, oh, I have to be on my laptop at the beach, or, oh, I get to be on the beach on my laptop. It's that different perspective. I could be stuck anywhere. Would I rather be stuck here or would I rather be stuck wherever I feel like being that week?
Yeah.
We're heading out next week to bounce around Vancouver Island, which is one of the most awful places in the entire world. Never, ever go. And yeah, certainly not beautiful, rugged coastline and sandy beaches and undiscovered wilderness.
Terrible.
Temperate rainforest. Yeah, it's absolutely the worst. So we're going to take the ferry over there. I don't have any campsites booked. I don't really know where we're going. I've saved like 21 places on Google Maps. I don't even know how long we're going for.
Mhm.
I just know that in general, we're leaving 𝗂𝗏𝗀 and going to Victoria. And then on the way back, we want to go from like Courtenay to Powell River and come down the Sunshine Coast to come home. But on the island, I don't know what we're doing. And it's weird as that sounds, that's part of the excitement. That's part of the adventure. That's part of what jazzes me about it. And other people's anxiety is really badly triggered by that.
Yeah. I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I can do that. But like, it's like I said, it's like a constant conflict because I want that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to be able to just be like, yeah, I'm going to book a flight to wherever and do whatever and make like no plans. But in my brain, I'm like, no. We've got to like book hotels and we got to do this and we got to know where we're going because otherwise we're going to get lost. And it's like a whole anxiety, fun time.
And like our first trip to San Diego was like day by day, hour by hour. I knew how long it was going to take us to drive from one campground reservation to the next kind of thing. The spontaneity thing is something that is like a learned comfort, something you earn by learning that when the campground lost your reservation or when you can't actually drive that far, you find the coolest shit.
But off-road.
Yeah, exactly. Or, you just find these municipal campgrounds. For anyone listening who wants to do the digital nomad thing in an RV, municipal campgrounds are the bomb. They are subsidized by taxpayers. So the nightly rates are like $20 and under. They're usually full hookups. They're run by volunteers or like little old seniors that are doing it for funsies and they don't care. They're just having a great time and they're really fun and they love welcoming their guests. And yeah, they're in the center of town in some really cool destinations. So municipal campgrounds are where it's at. But yeah, it's like you have to test it, you have to try it, and you get to know pretty quickly if that uncertainty of like where you're going to be next is a comfortable feeling or an uncomfortable feeling. And you get to know really quickly whether you get homesick. That was one of the big indicators for me that we made the right choice because I've never been homesick, not once.
Yeah.
Every time we're on our way back to our home base, legal requirements in BC, we have to physically be in the province of British Columbia 6 months out of the year, or we are no longer eligible for our provincially sponsored health insurance, and our kids are no longer eligible for school. And they're in an online program that enables their unschooling. But so when we were coming back for 6 months, I'm always like, I don't wanna. Can't we just stay here one more night and then like here one more night, and then why don't we stop here one more night? And like we just get closer and closer, and I'm like, how about 2 nights? Can we extend? I never want to come home.
Yeah, that's a good sign.
That's a really good sign. Like that, I would say that's the number one sign. I was scared shitless the first time we left, and everyone I've ever talked to who has been a world traveler, especially solo world travelers, they're like, oh yeah, I have to talk myself into getting in the airport every time. The anxiety of that never goes away. But if you have just as bad anxiety about coming home, that's a sign. Yeah. Because home should be safe and comfortable and like a warm hug. And if it's not, maybe it's not home.
Yeah, it reminds me of when I went on a trip to Scotland and I got back and I was sitting in an Uber on my way to work and I started to cry. Like that poor Uber driver was probably like, what the hell is wrong with this person? Because I was just like, because I didn't want to like be there. I didn't want to go to work. I didn't want to be like in DC. Like I didn't want to live there. And I was like, wait, take me anywhere else. And I was just like silently crying in the back of this Uber.
Right.
And that's when I was like, I'm quitting my job.
Yeah, exactly. And there's usually galvanizing moments like that help you figure it out, but not always. And I don't know, for me, one of the biggest moments that helped me realize that the travel thing was for me was just the fact that I never got homesick.
Yeah. Definitely a good indicator. And I want to say, so listeners, I do think I'm going to have Cheryl back on to really dive into the RV life, pros, cons, what works, what doesn't work, what some of your craziest adventures have been. Like, I really want to hear what it has been like. And for those of you listening, if you have questions specific to like the RV life or being a digital nomad, definitely send them to me. I'll give you our hotline so you can call, text me, voice message, whatever. And that way we can ask Cheryl and get all the deets on what RV life is like. Because I'm fascinated by it. Like I said, I want to try it. So I just gotta, I'm doing my market research right now.
Yes. Before anyone asks, all of our RVs have bathrooms. There are no buckets. So just like, don't even ask that question. It's not like van life, guys. I made sure.
Although, I don't know. There's a part of me that's like, I could get a school bus and renovate it and do like the schooly life, but I don't know. RVs seem maybe a better route. But
schoolies, tiny homes, van conversions, and anything not built by a certified manufacturer are actually not allowed in a good percentage of private campgrounds in the US due to insurance regulations.
Yeah. And also getting them like properly, well, kind of like you said, like registered just for like road safety and all that is also a challenge I hear. So RV might just be. So yes, keep an eye out for that episode because we will be doing a new one or another one. Jesus. I've run out of my coffee's burned off from this morning. I'm on my downslope for the afternoon. But before we wrap up, are you currently working on anything or have any like workshops or anything that you'd like to share? And this will come out in April.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as we're recording this, I'm actually doing a workshop tomorrow that talks about a lot of the reasons that the funnel model doesn't work for everyone and some of the ins and outs of how to actually implement what I talked about today. So even though you're going to miss the live version, I'm still going to have the replay up in my group, which is where everyone kind of congregates to learn from me. So if you're listening to this, you can just go to soloschool.ca/group and it will give you a little sign up and you can head over to the group and the replay will be pinned in there, or you can just DM me for it and I'll send you the link if you can't find it. Other than that, I'm actually just about to re-record all of the modules from my mastermind program, which is really, really cool because when I decided I wanted to teach other people how to do this, I decided I wanted people to mentor each other. I wanted it to be a true mastermind. And so it's actually a lifetime access mastermind with unlimited access to weekly calls for as long as I'm doing them instead of having to re-up all the time, because I want the people who do the market research, initial offer, long-term offer process and start to get it down to come back and mentor the people who are new at it. I'm revamping all the training modules in that, updating the scripts for 2022, adding more social media stuff because email is a bit less responsive, post Panini. So we're going with more of the social media stuff and just building it up so that pretty much anyone who comes in and implements what's in there, can get to that point of consistent income within 3 to 6 months. That's what we always try and strive for. And it's built for neurodivergent people. So the videos are short and what I say is written on the screen. So you can listen on mute and just read stuff. And there are workbooks and accessible fonts. And it's like someone actually cares. So
I love it. I saw your training or your workshop coming up. So I was like, I'm going to have to do that. I might have to check that out.
Yeah, you should totally come. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah,
I'm giving away prizes.
Oh, shit. I'm in. I'll be there. Thanks. Awesome. And so actually, is it best for folks to find you on your website? That was soloschool.ca, or do you also have like socials where folks can follow you, or Facebook or?
Yeah. So, probably the best thing to do is to go to that soloschool.ca/group and sign up for my group, because you'll also sign up for my email newsletter at the same time. Every week I host a podcast episode. Every week I put up a new YouTube video. Right now we're on a kick about pricing and packaging. The next thing coming up that I'm going to talk about is client management, how to handle good clients, how to handle bad clients, how to structure all those sorts of things. And I share a lot of free resources there. Every week I do a free live training in the group, and I put out a ton of content, a ton of free stuff to help everybody. And so amazing. Usually ends up living in the group. And I also send out an email reminder once a week with kind of a schedule of what's happening. We also do co-working sessions every Wednesday where you can come and bring a task for an hour and just like head down focus on it with the rest of us in the group, which you're welcome to come and attend, but you got to sign up for the group first. So soloschool.ca/group. Come and join us. And then you can have access to all the things. I will send you links to my Instagram and my YouTube. And if I finally get onto TikTok, I'll do that too. And it'll all come through there.
Wonderful. soloschool.ca/group in the episode description so that everyone can find it. Super easy. And I will probably join the group. So
yeah, you totally should. There's so many awesome people in there.
I bet it's a pretty cool group of folks. I mean, Cheryl, I have had an absolute blast recording with you today, and I cannot wait to record again and to talk more about RV life. And I really, again, can't thank you enough for sharing your story and providing insight into building that consistency with clients and how that lends itself into kind of a freer life. I feel we all need a little bit of, I feel. For listeners, I want to thank you for listening. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, whatever, you can call or text us on the hotline 252-419-6004, and we will include them on a future episode of the podcast. So if you do have questions for Cheryl about RVs, adventuring, any of that, definitely shoot us a text or leave us a voicemail. You can also DM me on Instagram @PhoneWithFriends_podcast. And yeah, be sure to like, rate, and review the Phone with Friends podcast. And with that, get out there, try something new, and have some fucking fun. Bye!
Thanks for listening to the Phone with Friends podcast, a CEI media production. Please like, rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast as it helps us greatly. You can follow us on Instagram @FunWithFriendsPodcast and on Facebook. If you would like to support the podcast, you can become a Patreon for just $5 a month. The link is in the episode description. Now get out there, try something new, and have some fun. Bye!